Lazarus is an original anime series that started airing in the spring 2025 anime season. It's well known for being one of the handful of anime that starts off every episode with the Adult Swim logo, because, they probably helped finance the thing and they only do that so often. And also it's known for being directed by famed anime director Shinichiro Watanabe, which actually has the Adult Swim connection make far more sense when you remember how much of the higher-ups at Adult Swim have been enamored by things like Bebop and Shampoo since way back in the day. The major problem about being a work created by a famous director, or really any sort of well-known creative, is that at the start they have the distinct disadvantage of having like a noose around their neck in the form of audience expectations. The director has created great works before, so obviously this too is going to be great, right? For his part, I feel like Watanabe has done a decent job of sidestepping this for a lot of his projects over the years. It's hard for people to compare Shampoo and Bebop to things that exist in a completely different genre. I'm sure some people try to compare his older work with like Terror and Resonance, or even Carol and Tuesday, but all of these are just distinct enough that it's not easy to pose those direct comparisons. At their core, they are all very different, which is, in this viewer's opinion, no longer the case with his newest work, Lazarus. Lazarus, while not taking place in anything that could be considered a space western or a music-infused Edo period, it's quite clear to see from the onset that someone wanted that comparison to be made. Even if you removed Watanabe's name, it's not hard to see the parallels between Lazarus's lead character Axel and Bebop's Spike, if for no other reason than Axel doesn't he doesn't feel like Spike in the ways that matters, but instead he feels more like a modern version of Lupin the Third in the same way that Spike feels like a 90s sci-fi take on the very same Lupin the Third. That's how they feel similar. It's all Lupin. The real connection between Axel and Spike is both like how fluid they are when they fight, and the fact that very cool jazz music plays when they do. What I will say though is that I dislike making these comparisons because the question that people normally make along with them is something around the lines of, is Lazarus as good as Bebop, Shampoo, whatever else? And does it matter? Like, just remove the as Bebop from that question, please. Because you only need to ask if it's good. And the answer is yes. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today we're talking about Lazarus. Let's jam. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Glass Reflection would like to thank the sponsor for this video today, being the currently airing sci-fi anime, Your Rhymes. It's not too far removed from other anime in the genre like Psycho-Pass or Ghost in the Shell, except for the added benefit of one of the main characters being someone whose job it is to dive into people's brains to find out the truth, working with someone who she can't brain dive with because he's a machine, has their relationship start off on the wrong foot. I will say in full honesty that the series won't pass the 3-episode test for most, and you really do have to go beyond that to see all that the show has to offer. But for those willing and able to take the dive, it would not be wrong to call this a hidden gem of the season. You can stream Your Former right now for free on Samsung TV Plus, which is available on any Samsung device or in the Samsung TV Plus Android app. So thank you very much to Your Forma for sponsoring the video, and now we return to Lazarus. The world of Lazarus is not too much different from our own, just slightly more technologically advanced, as it's just shy of 25 years in our future. A scientific genius has created a miracle drug that stops people from feeling pain. Not just physical pain, but emotional pain, too. This drug becomes a revolutionary new thing for the entire human race. It's so good and so perfect with virtually no side effects that it changes how humans handle their lives, both for good and for ill. Turns out, however, that the scientist who created it had a bit of a trick up his sleeve when he releases a pre-recorded announcement several years later that says that anybody who has taken the drug is gonna die. And considering that the majority of the human population has taken it by this point, the world is in a bit of a crisis to find a cure for this new problem. Or at the very least to find the scientist himself, who's still in hiding after he fell off the face of the earth years ago. Enter Lazarus, an elite team of misfits and specialists brought together to comb over the world and find the good doctor before the established time limit of humanity's demise. All of the members of Lazarus have a history that has given them the specific skills Axel's useful in finding and apprehending an elusive figure like Dr. Skinner, but also their histories give them great stories to work from and not only help to build the world up with every episode, but to explore their own history and desires for a variety of reasons. You know, from making a hobby out of breaking out of jail, to growing up in a cult with a secluded commune who worship an AI overlord, to a Russian secret agent who defected. These are all great personal stories that are able to be weaved into this overarching plot because the plot is just vague enough to make it all work seamlessly. They need to find Dr. Skinner. So every episode we are following one lead or another that might bring our characters to him, but in doing so, they end up digging up why each of them are on this chase to begin with, even if going through their stories doesn't make them any closer to their final goal. Unless you're like Axel, who doesn't really seem to have a goal. I might have just said that his motivations are, well, whatever the plot requires them to be, but the more episodes we get, the more I'm thinking less and less that is the case. Axel is probably the most apathetic character in this series. He's only in this mess because he's been forced to, and he'll die even sooner than the drug will kill him with that nonary game bracelet that's been put around his wrist, which will kill him if he doesn't comply. And since he says himself that breaking out of jail is a fun hobby for him, it's not hard to imagine that he's working with the Lazarus team because it's the easiest path to escape his current predicament. But when it comes to like the overall story, Axel doesn't seem to be all that invested. Right? If they end up not catching Dr. Skinner, I honestly feel like he wouldn't personally care. Sure, he'll die, but with the way he lives his life, death is a constant companion anyway. This just moves things forward a little bit. Perhaps he even views death as an escape, and life the prison that he finds himself in. There are a lot of different ways to interpret his character. This is, of course, also assuming that the drug has affected him in the first place. On the one hand, he might have some kind of weird bullcrap main character immunity. That would not be interesting. But also, in like one of the show's intro monologues, Axel explains that he only ever took the drug once, when he was already in prison, and then he was disappointed because the drug didn't do anything for him. He still felt pain. It didn't work. So if you look into the subtext of that, there's a chance that either he's immune to the drug, hence why its effects didn't bother him, or actually that he didn't get the drug at all and someone in or out of the prison scammed him with a placebo. Like the ED of the whole show has the cast lying unconscious on the ground, presumably after the countdown has ended and they're all dead, but Axel is the only one who stands back up again. Symbolism, get it? Like the show really likes to hide things behind the curtain in interesting ways. I say interesting, and what I mean is that the reveals we do have don't feel like gotchas. Probably because any major reveal has been properly, and in some cases, overly foreshadowed. Oh, the scientist lady has worked with Skinner in the past? How was that foreshadowed? Well, she made an offhanded comment when they found the drug's clinical trials, in a way that makes it obvious she's seen them before, and Doug gets a little eye twitch, because he noted something important there. Let's quickly move on so that never comes up again until you know it's relevant. The foreshadowing is not always subtle, but honestly, I prefer obvious foreshadowing to no foreshadowing. Like, hey, is Dr. Skinner even really the bad guy here? We've been learning about this man for the whole season, but no one really has a good answer for why he suddenly went off the deep end and Asimoved his way into thinking that the only way to save humanity was to kill everyone. He was obviously frustrated with humanity and what we are doing to the planet, see his passionate speech about the Arctic melting, but also with all of his Good Samaritan stuff that he's shown to do, the idea that he would be fine with a lot of unrelated and innocent people dying is a hard pill to swallow, and the Lazarus team themselves keep noticing that his motivations don't make sense. Is that just more obvious foreshadowing? I don't know, but I suppose that's just a twist for the show's finale, one that is coming far too soon, as I would have loved this series to be a full 24 episodes instead of just the 13 that we're getting. There would be a lot more room to breathe and show off this world with that higher episode count, and like this world with its essentially post-opioid epidemic has a lot of things that I'd like to see explained. Like, even the drug itself, I feel like if it had more time, could be showcased a little bit better. We get monologues about how people used the drug to make the hardships of life go away, but I feel like that's just a goldmine for stories we're not getting. Were there companies or countries that forced people to do hard labor and made them work even harder than normal because they would just give them the miracle drug to make the pain go away so that they could work longer and longer hours? What about addiction? Like, we've heard that this drug became the new thing for kids to get high with, but wouldn't that mean that, that following the reveal it'll kill everybody, people started showing withdrawal symptoms because they didn't want to take it anymore? Unless it really is just that perfect of a drug that it doesn't have withdrawal symptoms, but that would just be less satisfying. Speaking of less satisfying, one thing I will say that I am disappointed with in this series is, well, the music. Like, if you look through Watanabe's history, the stories that he works on and music always go hand in hand. Here, though, I feel like the connections between the story or even like the production and music are just like a phantom of what they've been in his previous works. Sure, every episode has a title that's a music reference, and they got some really great names from the jazz scene to write music for the score, but there's just something about it that doesn't feel complete. The stories that the anime has told have a good amount of personal details for these characters. Far more than I've gotten used to with over the years for other anime, so I'm happy about that. But I don't feel like that development comes across in the actual music for the series. To the point where I would not be surprised if the score was actually written without any of the, specific story in mind to begin with. The overall story, sure, but none of the personal stories that the characters experience. We have this wonderful cast, but I don't feel like we have really personalized scores or leitmotifs for them, which is something I would have loved. This is really the only major flaw I have with the series at present. Well, beyond, again, the fact that it's only going to be 13 episodes, and a big part of me doesn't see the finale being able to live up to the world that the narrative has built up so far in a satisfying way, but I've been wrong before. There are, of course, plenty of minor flaws. Like, I would love a series like this to showcase hacking beyond that whole over-the-top, flashy screen, I'm in kind of hacking. I get that real hacking is boring to hell, and to showcase this, there's always a pressure to make hacking look a lot cooler than it actually is. But the more I see those hacking tropes and the people that are hackers just being weird, the more I just sigh inwardly. I cannot say that I am disappointed by Lazarus, because when you've been in this game long enough, you learn not to move forward with the obvious expectations. I was not expecting this to be the next Bebop, the next Shampoo, or even the next Michiko and Hachin, though that would have been cool. And I can honestly say that I am perfectly happy with what I have been getting. Can I find flaws? Yes. Am I still enjoying the heck out of it? Also, yes. Like, when you get the choreographer who worked on John Wick to plan out your action scenes, you're gonna have a good time. The only way that I think you won't enjoy yourself with Lazarus is if this genre of series is not for you to begin with, so fair, or you expect too much of it going in. Don't be serious with this one, right? Be like water. Water is good. Lazarus is water. Therefore, Lazarus is good. Until next time, watch more anime, stay frosty.